The studio lights were hot, the cameras locked in, and millions of viewers leaned closer to their screens. Pete Hegseth, the Fox News host known for his fiery tone, thought he had the upper hand. He was pressing Barack Obama with a barrage of questions meant to corner him, the kind that usually rattled guests and fueled viral clips. But this time, things did not go as planned. Obama, calm at first, let Hegseth build his monologue of accusations, letting him pile on every charge. Then, with a sudden shift in tone, Obama cut through the noise with words so sharp that the atmosphere froze. His fiery response was not rehearsed, not measured for safety. It was a direct strike. "Pete," Obama said, his voice steady but edged with steel, "you mistake shouting for strength, but all you're showing America right now is weakness." The line detonated across the set. Viewers at home could almost hear the collective gasp from the crew and the live audience. Pete blinked, his confident smirk faltering, as if the ground beneath him had cracked. In a split second, the balance of power flipped. What was supposed to be Pete's takedown moment became Obama's counterpunch, one that cut deeper than any insult Pete had prepared. The meltdown began right there. Hegseth's face flushed, his voice rose higher, and the controlled rhythm of the show shattered. He accused Obama of dodging the real issues, of playing word games, of trying to silence conservative voices. But the more he yelled, the clearer it became that he was losing control. Clips of the moment would soon dominate social media, tagged with captions about Obama dismantling his opponent live on air. For a man who built his reputation on composure, Obama's fiery answer carried a weight that no one expected. It wasn't just a rebuttal, it was a revelation. It showed the millions watching that Pete Hegseth could be broken, and it happened in real time. That single sentence lit the fuse for everything that followed. The confrontation unfolded on a night when the network promised a high-stakes debate. The theme was supposed to be the future of American leadership, a topic broad enough for fireworks, but framed tightly enough to keep the exchange under control. Pete Hegseth stepped into the studio with confidence, armed with talking points and a mission to expose Obama as out of touch, weak, and irrelevant in today's political arena. For his audience, this was going to be another clip of Pete standing tall against the so-called elites. Obama, however, came with a different kind of preparation. He didn't arrive with stacks of notes or rehearsed one-liners. He came with a calm presence, a reputation for sharp wit, and the understanding that millions of viewers were waiting for a clash that would reveal character more than policy. He knew that Pete wanted to provoke him into hesitation or stumble, and he was prepared to flip the script. From the opening moments, the energy was tense. Hegseth attacked quickly, hammering Obama on issues ranging from foreign policy to the economy. He accused him of leaving America vulnerable, of bowing to global interests, of failing the working class. His tone was aggressive, clipped, designed to paint Obama as someone who could not answer to real Americans. The interruptions piled up, his words spilling over the moderator, his voice climbing as he leaned in, clearly hungry for dominance. Obama listened. He nodded occasionally, but his eyes never left Pete. Viewers could sense that he was waiting, letting the storm rage before delivering a strike. The producers, commentators, and analysts watching behind the scenes could feel the buildup. This was not just a policy debate anymore. It was a test of will. The audience in the studio mirrored the divide across the nation. Some applauded Pete's aggressiveness, seeing it as proof that he was standing firm against a former president they disliked. Others winced, feeling the overbearing tone turn into desperation. Social media was already buzzing, hashtags forming in real time, memes being crafted before the exchange had even reached its breaking point. For Pete, the live stage was supposed to be his battlefield, his chance to claim victory by sheer force of volume. For Obama, it was an opportunity to remind Americans that power isn't measured in decibels but in precision. The clash of styles, one brash and relentless, the other measured and sharp, was exactly the contrast that would make the meltdown unforgettable. It was clear from the very start that this was more than just a clash of ideas. It was an exhibition of personality, credibility, and control. And as millions tuned in, the stage was set for the moment when Pete Hegseth's confidence would turn into collapse. The storm broke when Pete pushed too far. He leaned forward, his tone dripping with disdain, and fired off a line that he clearly believed would land the final blow. Mr. Obama, you've spent 8 years apologizing for America, and now even off the stage, you're still apologizing. Isn't it true that your so-called leadership left this country weaker, divided, and embarrassed on the world stage? The words echoed in the studio, and Pete sat back, expecting the sting to settle in. For a moment, silence held. Then Obama's lips curled slightly, not into a smile, but into something closer to recognition. He knew this was the setup, and he knew the cameras were hungry for his reaction. "Pete," Obama replied evenly, "I didn't spend 8 years apologizing for America. I spent 8 years working to make sure America didn't have to apologize for reckless mistakes. You can shout all you want, but shouting doesn't make you right." The line cut like a blade. Pete bristled, his posture stiffening, and the meltdown inched closer. His voice sharpened as he shot back, "Don't lecture me about mistakes. The only mistake America made was listening to you in the first place." Gasps rippled through the audience. It was raw, it was personal, and it was reckless. But Obama didn't flinch. He leaned in just enough for the cameras to catch the fire in his eyes. "You think patriotism is measured by insults?" Obama said, voice rising slightly. "Real patriotism is telling the truth, even when it's hard. Real patriotism is standing for unity, not division. What you're doing right now is theater, and America deserves better than theater." The studio erupted in murmurs. Commentators watching in real time scrambled to type their notes. Social feeds lit up with clips, each side claiming a victory in the making. But the temperature in the room was shifting. Pete's face reddened, his words stumbled, and for the first time, he looked less like a confident host and more like a man losing his grip. He tried to pivot, throwing out a rapid-fire list of accusations. Weak borders, failed foreign deals, a sluggish economy. Each charge was meant to overwhelm, but Obama responded with short, sharp counters. "You talk about borders, deportations were higher under me than under your guy. You call foreign deals weakness? Those alliances kept America safe. You claim the economy was sluggish? I handed over steady growth after the worst collapse since the Great Depression." Each answer was crisp, factual, and delivered with the rhythm of someone in full command. Pete's strategy collapsed under the weight of precision. His interruptions grew louder, his voice cracked, and the once practiced smirk dissolved into frustration. Viewers at home could see the unraveling live. Commentators would later call it the turning point, the sequence of exchanges where the debate became something else entirely, a battle of control, and Pete was losing badly. The breaking point came with one exchange that will be replayed for years. Pete, sweating under the lights but still forcing his voice louder, pounded the table with his hand. "You sit here acting like you've got all the answers. But the truth is, Mr. Obama, you failed this country. You divided us, you weakened us, and you left us vulnerable. You are the reason Americans don't trust their leaders anymore." The words rang with fury, but instead of shaking Obama, they gave him the perfect opening. He paused, leaned forward slightly, and let his words drop with deliberate weight. "Pete," he said, his tone now fiery and unyielding, "the reason Americans don't trust their leaders is because of people like you, people who spread anger instead of solutions, who scream instead of serve. You want to talk about weakness? This meltdown of yours is weakness, broadcast live for the entire country to see." The studio froze. The audience let out a collective gasp, and the silence that followed was deafening. Pete's face twisted, his composure shattering in real time. His voice cracked as he tried to fire back. "You think you're better than everyone else? You think you can just come on here and insult me?" But the words tumbled over each other, his sentences breaking into fragments. He jabbed his finger at Obama, his volume spiking into a shout. "You don't get to lecture me! You don't get to sit there smug after what you did to this country!" It was no longer debate. It was eruption. His meltdown was raw, unfiltered, and unmissable. The camera zoomed in on his reddened face, his trembling hands, his desperate attempt to regain footing. But Obama didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "America's watching, Pete," Obama said calmly, cutting through the chaos. "And tonight, they see the difference between noise and leadership." The words landed like a hammer. Viewers at home clipped the moment instantly, flooding timelines with captions like, "Obama shuts it down" and "Hegseth loses it on live TV." Analysts jumped into emergency coverage, stunned by the collapse unfolding in prime time. Pete tried to continue, his voice nearly breaking, repeating phrases like failed leadership and broken promises, but it was too late. The meltdown had consumed him. The contrast was undeniable. Obama steady, controlled, and sharp. Pete unraveling, loud, and exposed. The climax wasn't just about a single line. It was about the visual of a host who prided himself on toughness crumbling under the weight of a response he never saw coming. Obama's fiery words had flipped the script, turning the hunter into the hunted, and the entire nation was watching it live. When the dust settled, the image was clear. Pete Hegseth, usually the one pressing his guests into corners, had been the one cornered. His meltdown was now etched into television history, dissected frame by frame, quoted endlessly, and shared across every platform. But the real story wasn't only about his unraveling, it was about what Obama's fiery response revealed. News outlets cut into regular programming within minutes. On cable networks, the moment was replayed in slow motion, with analysts pausing on Obama's killer line, then on Pete's red face, then on the silence that hung after. Commentators called it a political earthquake, proof that live television still had the power to shock a nation. Social media turned the scene into a frenzy. Hashtags like #HegsethMeltdown and #ObamaStrikes backshot to the top of trending lists. Memes appeared within seconds. Screenshots of Pete mid-shout contrasted with Obama's calm stare, captioned with lines like noise versus leadership and game over. On TikTok, clips were set to dramatic music edited like movie trailers, while on Twitter the debate raged over whether Obama had crossed a line or simply told the truth that millions needed to hear. Politicians joined the chorus. Some conservatives rushed to defend Pete, calling Obama arrogant and dismissive, trying to spin the meltdown as righteous anger. But the visuals told a different story. To the wider public, it wasn't righteous, it was reckless. For independents and undecided viewers, the contrast was striking. One man unraveling, another standing firm. Obama's final words lingered long after the cameras cut. America's watching, Pete, and tonight they see the difference between noise and leadership. It was more than a debate line. It was a closing statement to the entire country. It positioned him as the steady hand in a storm, the voice of reason when the chaos reigned. For Pete, the fallout was brutal. Editorials described his outburst as the most public self-destruction of his career. Late-night hosts parodied his shouting fit, exaggerating his finger jabs and voice cracks to roars of laughter. Even allies in conservative media admitted off-air that he had lost control. His attempt to dominate Obama had backfired so spectacularly that it became the defining image of the night. For Obama, the moment reinforced his reputation for composure under fire, but this time with a fiery edge. He had not simply absorbed attacks, as he often did in the past. He had struck back hard and done so in a way that revealed his opponent's fragility. The balance of perception shifted in those few minutes. The final message that echoed across America was not about policy details or partisan arguments. It was about the character of leadership. People saw, side by side, two models, one consumed by anger, the other anchored by control. And for millions, that contrast told the story better than any poll or headline. As the credits rolled on the broadcast, commentators summed it up with one sentence. This wasn't just a debate, this was a collapse. And in living rooms across the nation, viewers nodded, knowing they had witnessed a moment when the mask of toughness slipped and the meltdown became unforgettable.